For today's video, there's all this buzz and news around publishers trying to figure out what will be the next Balatro. So in the next 5 minutes or less, I'm going to give you my easy top 10 guide that if you follow, you'll make the next multi-billion-dollar game idea. And this is totally not clickbait or lie. With the just sheer out-of-the-blue and mysterious success of Balatro, it has left publishers and developers scrambling to figure out how can they create the perfect market segment that will capitalize on all the metrics to get more people to buy their take on it. And as someone who's been covering the game industry now for over a decade, I've had to live through all the many different cycles of game comes out and everyone tries to copy it. So for the new folks joining us, let's do a quick roundup and let me know which ones I missed down below. So we had the Biome Isaac cycle, FTL, Dead Cells, Slay the Spire, Darkest Dungeon, Balatro, Vampire Survivors. We could technically call Baldur's Gate one of those as well. And we had Disco Elysium, but no one has managed yet to capitalize on that. But there, I'm sure, are plenty more. And as we've said in the past, pick any big name success, and you will find probably a few dozen developers and publishers all trying to chase after it for the next year to 18 months following that game's success. But there are two distinct areas of problems when it comes to trying to kind of ride the waves of another game's success. The first, as we've said plenty of times before, is that whenever a game becomes the first in a genre to blow up, not necessarily the first of that genre, again, but the first one to reach the popular zeitgeist, it affords itself so many advantages that no other developer is going to be able to compete with. Here's a pop quiz for you. Can you name me a bullet heaven game that has sold better and is more popular than Vampire Survivors? That's a trick question. None of them exist. Just like how we haven't had a Battle Royale game that has earned more money than Fortnite. And even if you have a game that is legitimately or factually better or more involved or more original, the base game being the first one will still outsell it, as we've seen with the numerous deck-building roguelikes that have been released following Slay the Spire, and not one that I've seen has managed to outsell Slay the Spire. And we're even going to be getting a sequel, and so it'll be very telling to see how the sequel will do, now that everyone is kind of already accustomed to deck builders. Now the other point about this is trying to create, the perfect laboratory conditions to will a massive success into being. That if you take a developer with obsessive compulsive disorder at a rating of 7 and masochism at a level of 10 and keep them in a room for X to the 15th power days, that they will create the next Balatro. And while we may be joking about this, that hasn't stopped publishers and investors from obsessively trying to figure out what is going to be the next big hit. We have, again, seen this time and time again. But the problem, and to kind of, again, correct our point at the beginning, is that you can't will a success into being. When we look at the games that I've mentioned, from Darkest Dungeon to FTL and all those others, they came out relatively unknown at their time. They could have had successes such as the Kickstarter. I think FTL also had a Kickstarter, if I remember right. But of course, the Darkest Dungeon one, even going back as far as like Planetary Annihilation. But the successes in this respect, when we talk about like marketing and branding, it does help. However, that's not the entire solution. Balatro succeeded because it is a damn well done game. It is incredibly designed for that one turn feel. Just like how the Biome Isaac came out and really had that perfect moment of being an action roguelike to kind of throw the entire genre on its head that people are still debating as to where things are going. The same goes for Dead Cells. But the point is, if you think that you can just make this happen, that there is a preset number of conditions that if you just follow this every single time, your game will turn into the next Balatro or Vampire Survivors. And that never works. Because the games that blow up like this, all the ones I've mentioned, as I said, the time that they came out, no one was really doing a game along those same lines. Again, as a deck building example, there were plenty of deck building roguelikes long before Slay the Spire. Games like Dream Quest, forgetting a few of the other ones as well. But when Slay the Spire came out, no other deck builder had that same level of presentation, UI, UX, and gameplay to it. And I've said this story plenty of times, that after 30 to 40 minutes of playing the very first version of Slay the Spire in Early Access, I basically said to myself, yeah, this game's going to succeed. It's going to do really damn well. And the reason why I said that was no one was doing a game like that at that time. The same again goes to FTL. Nobody was making a roguelike like FTL was. And when it came out, it blew up in a very spectacular way. And the reason why the Kickstarters for FTL and Darkest Dungeon blew up so well is that they both presented something that no one else was doing at that time. When you look at Darkest Dungeon, you had the amazing art style, the fantastic narration, rest in peace Wayne June, and it was all done to give the player excitement. This excitement that this is something that you haven't seen before. Yes, the DNA and the foundations may be something similar to an RPG, a deck builder, roguelike, whatever, but not in this way. And I've said this time and time again, you need to show to the consumer what makes your game special. If your only answer is, this is Vampire Survivors, but everyone wears cowboy hats, nobody's going to care. When you look at the successes of other bullet heavens like 20 Minutes Till Dawn, Brotato, Halls of Torment, and a few other ones, they were all built on the same foundation as Vampire Survivors. Again, because of the whole point of the subgenre. But they all handle differently. They all legitimately feel like a different and original take on this design. As again, another classic example, all the modern retro platformers have tried to copy Mario or Sonic. Yeah, that's great. You made a Mario-like or a Sonic-like. If your game is just a one-to-one recreation of those titles, why should I give it the time of day? When you look at the ones that have blown up, like Shovel Knight, Freedom Planet, and again, there's plenty of other ones. They may have foundations with classic games, but they do things differently. There is that through line, that there is something original and different about this. And again, originality in this respect is not something that you can just, cut and paste from one game to another, and voila, your game's going to be as successful. Because many developers take that wrong lesson. With Balatro as the current example, how many gambling likes have we seen or noticed being revealed or having early access or a demo in the past year? Again, how many? There's been a ton of them that I've had to see. And it's because a lot of developers felt, well, Balatro is about gambling. I'll take gambling and put it in my game. 1 + 1 makes 2 and I'll be rich and famous. But again, that's not what made Balatro successful. The same goes for Darkest Dungeon. Following the release of Darkest Dungeon, how many very dark and dour Lovecraftian RPGs with that same art style were released in the following 2 to 3 years? And again, how many of them have become as popular as Darkest Dungeon? How many of you even remember some of the ones that were released? Let me know down below. But again, it's this kind of trying to math out success that has doomed a lot of developers and publishers. Because if you're just chasing after whatever is hot and new and big and famous, guess what? You're never going to get a game done. Or you'll get a game done and it's just this convoluted mess of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I had this and this? And, racing was popular in this year, so I'm going to add a racing level. But no, wait, now everyone's talking about stealth games. Let's do a stealth. Oh, but we gotta have that Five Nights at Freddy's horror section. Let's put all that in. And somewhere an indie developer is getting a colossal migraine. And when you're trying to put the stuff together, again, you can't just go somewhere and say, I had $10 million. Someone make me the next Balatro, or the next Vampire Survivors, or the next Baldur's Gate. This kind of stuff, it takes time, and more importantly, it takes and kind of like an unknown source for this to work. Again, as we've said over this video, the games that have blown up, they blew up for the very reason that no one else was doing a game like that at that time, or at that specific level of scope and detail. Stardew Valley is another example. You thought I forgot about that one, didn't you? How many Stardew Valley lakes have we seen over the past 10 years? How many Terraria lakes have we seen? How many times have we played a game that you have to construct your same cabin at the start, but you have to always build a workbench, and then you have to build the bed, and then you have to build the walls, but wait, you can't build the walls exactly how you want, they have to be in a specific way or the room doesn't work. And I know a few of you are probably thinking about all the games that have hurt me in the survival crafter genre. And there have been a ton of them. And again, you cannot just look at what's already been done and make that game a massive success. With Stardew Valley, as we've said, the story has gone, the developer really wanted to play a Harvest Moon Lake. But guess what? There weren't any on PC. So they decided, well, I'm just going to make my own. And it resonated with people. And it's this point that this will be like, I think, our final point for the video today. That is a loss on a lot of developers and publishers. What is resonating with the audience? This can be anything and everything. Could be the art style, could be the story, could be voice acting, could be having a really gorgeous GUI, could be having original gameplay, could be having incredibly polished gameplay. But this is the kind of stuff that the person or the consumer is going to figure out within minutes, and sometimes within seconds, of loading up your game. It's again why I can say, when I looked at games like Slay the Spire, or Hades, or Dead Cells, or any of the other games that we've mentioned, that I knew relatively fast whether or not these games had a really good chance at thriving and reaching kind of the mainstream. Because if you load up a game, and within 3 minutes you are smiling from ear to ear at how fantastic this game is, or how original it is, or how much you're enjoying the story, that's a really good sign. If it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 4 hours in, and you're still wondering, what's going on with this game? Guess what? That game's going to fail. And that's also a trick question or a trick statement. Because most people are not going to spend 4 hours being confused at your game. They're going to probably spend 3 to 5 minutes, get confused, go, I don't want to play this anymore, uninstall, refund, and never look at it again. And there is, again, an art to that first time or first consumer experience for any game that is beyond the scope of our video for now. To wrap things up, when we look at game industry successes, they do come out of nowhere. You can have a game that has had like a very underground movement or underground following, stuff like Undertale being another massive example of this. But it's still unknown whether or not that game is going to blow up. Because we've seen games that have done everything right. They've had amazing gameplay, amazing story, it just looks and feels phenomenal, and it goes over like a lead balloon. Then you can have something like a Goat Simulator, or there's a game about digging a hole that I played about, I think, a few weeks ago at the time of recording this, that no one knew was going to war. Like, why would a game about digging a hole be exciting? But it's still connected with people in a way that it made it stood out. And when a game stands out for people, they're going to talk about it. And when they talk about it, obviously, word gets out to more and more people. And as we've said plenty of times over, marketing in this respect is like a snowball going downhill. Once it starts going, it's going to pick up momentum, it's going to get bigger and bigger. But getting the game to get off the ground like that is the monumental task. And it's something that, again, you can do every single thing, right? You can cross your T's, dot your I's, hire that super fancy publisher with a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign. No one plays it. You can post one weird gif of a squirrel, of, I don't know, blocks falling down, a character having trouble reaching a tie, and your game blows up. And for a lot of developers, when they have that level of success, it is blindsiding. I don't think Local Thunk had any idea that Balatro was going to do that well. Just like how Stardew Valley has blown up. And if anyone says that, oh yeah, I knew my game was going to become a $10 trillion success, yeah, I'm pretty sure they were thinking about that the entire time. And there is that step 2 that is not part of this video about what do you do following that major success. That's another topic in itself. But for today, again, if you want to find the next Balatro or the next Darkest Dungeon or whatever, you're not going to find that at a massively kind of already established studio. Something that has been making the same game or is already well known for a specific genre day in and day out. You're going to find that from the relatively newcomers, the unknowns, that strange game that you can pick up off of itch, or that random title you find in one of the Next Fests or any festivals with like a very weird thumbnail that, what the heck does this mean? Like, I don't know what this is. And you click on it and it just looks strange to you. But then you start playing it and it just opens up. And you cannot capture that magic. You cannot will that level of engagement. And again, that resonating effect through a marketing plan or come up with the perfect strategy to do so. For those of you watching, what are some other examples of games that managed to blow up without like any like real formula to it? That again, it's that example of one day the game is not out, no one's ever heard of it, we've never seen it before. The game is now a massive success. Everyone can't stop talking about it. It was just fantastic. There's going to be, 27 sequels and 5 DLCs, and now everyone's copying it. And while everyone is always going to rush to try and figure this out, it just never is going to work out that way. So who knows? By the time you're watching this video, there may be a new Balatro of 2025. Maybe someone will unearth it. Maybe I've unearthed it. And we'll be playing the next insert something like for the next 2 years. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.